talking about songs, it's a market here, and it's mostly a music publishing market. Very early on, you started having quite some strong views on the business, and especially on owning, your copyright, your repertoire, and be some sort of self-sufficient business unit.
Yeah.
Was it by design, or was it because you,
well, I think
you got fed up of being screwed by other people?
Yeah, you had the usual. I mean, I've been at it long enough that when we first went to Decca, the concept of artists getting royalties was still a new idea that record companies were wrestling with. They sort of thought it was coming, but they didn't really like the general concept of paying out beyond the advance. And then I think our first deal, we had 1 3/4% for most of the world and 2.5% for the UK. And I think it's a sort of initiation to the music business, Welcome, and better luck next time. And I think, I've benefited enormously from some great people in record companies, and I think, people have done a wonderful job in lots of areas. But I personally like the model where artists are in control. And I think you get a better quality of artist and probably better quality of music in that situation. Which is not to say that we shouldn't listen sometimes, because there are a lot of smart people that could offer us advice.
But then there has been some kind of evolution also, so from, okay, I own my publishing, but also, okay, let's go and see other areas of the business and not simply be with the 2 feet in the same shoe. And so you started a record label, you have a recording studio, and then you went on into some sort of a frenzy of either acquisition or creation. Are you an entrepreneur?
I think my grandfather was a gambler. My father was an electrical engineer and inventor, and my mother was passionate about music. So I have all those 3 things strong in my genes. Mm-hmm. I just spat into a tube 2 days ago. So I hope to get my genes analyzed for the first time. So perhaps I can answer more intelligently then.
But let's go back to the label itself. It's 20 years ago today.
Yeah.
You created Real World. What triggered it?
A moment of craziness, I think. It was actually, I thought we shouldn't do a label because the relationship, as many people in here know, between artist and label is a bit like a marriage. You very often have a honeymoon. And it doesn't always work out the way you thought it was going to. And so I thought, well, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with being in that. I'm happy enough with the marriage side, but not so good on the divorce end of things. So do I really want to do that with other artists? And I resisted for quite a long time. And then TOS, who we'd started this World Music Festival in 1980, WOMAD, and we had all these amazing artists coming through. And at that time, they couldn't get arrested. Well, actually, they could get arrested very easily, but but they couldn't get signed to labels. And then, of course, a lot of people had their own boutique world music labels. So it was really TOS who persuaded me. We have a studio, we have great facilities, we have these artists just itching to make records, and let's get on with it. So it was Simon Draper at Virgin who offered us £10,000 for each release, which we had to pay the artist advance, make the record, do the sleeve. So we were running on a tight budget, but it was a very good discipline and exercise, just how we could get things done.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at all the recordings that you've issued on Real World, what kind of feeling do you have today? It's a body of work.
It is, really, and there's some, people like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan you come across once in a lifetime, and there's some extraordinarily good and talented artists there. So I think it feels great that we've helped, make them better known.
So everybody in this business for the past 5 years has been feeling the kind of earthquake
Sure.
of the digital world. Did it affect the business at Real World, or actually was it a blessing in a way, so that you can find other ways to promote and distribute your artists?
Well, all sorts of wonderful new life forms grow out of a corpse. And
sometimes it stinks.
and sometimes there's a smell, yeah. But I think, so I think both things really, that, you know, as a studio, I mean, our big room, we get, I think, less today than we got 20 years ago per hour when it opened. That's not a great business model, but we have actually now gone into film sound mixing as well, which is going quite well. But, so I think everyone, probably a lot of people know this in the room, they're, you know, facing declining revenue, declining sales. At the same time, you know, there are all these exciting opportunities, and my own passion is that, and hope, is that the fundamental revolution in the economic model of the fact that in the old days you needed to really convince someone you're going to sell 100,000 copies to get into a studio. You know, that's gone. People can make records in their bedroom. People can survive maybe with just 100 fans if they're passionate enough and willing to pay. So if the economic model really catches fire, which it will do, then all sorts of new forms of music can exist that weren't commercially viable. So that it should, I hope, change the actual content and nature of the stuff that we listen to. That's, you know, there should be, I think, a renaissance of creativity. All sorts of collaborations could happen that couldn't have happened before. People will not just be in one band, you know, working slowly like I do to make an album, but
no, we haven't noticed that you were listening.
Yeah, doing all sorts of things, you know, and I think it should be a lot more fun. You know, we used to do these recording weeks where we get artists from around the world, writers, and spend a week. It was a 24-hour cafe, very important, alcohol on tap, and we'd make music together. And right now in the studio, there's a TV program. We've got a group of writers together, and they're all writing, working furiously. And you know, a lot of this profession on this side of it is like lighthouse keepers. It's quite a lonely activity. So if you find yourself in all these new situations with different people, different opportunities, more experimental music, more niche music, I think it could really transform what we do, and I'm excited by that.
Well, the first time we met was here in Cannes for MIDEM Nets 5-6 years ago, and you were promoting a new venture called OD2. That company ended up being acquired by Nokia and served as the foundation of Nokia's music store. You know, obviously you were on something, and you had it right. Otherwise, Nokia wouldn't have been interested. Where does it come from, that kind of appetite or interest in those things? You know, you could have left other people do it, and you did it yourself.
Well, I guess the opportunity comes, and in this case, Charles Grimsdale, we met elsewhere when he was working at Vision, and we had another wild project, Experience Park in Barcelona, which didn't happen. But and it felt like that was the way things were going anyway. And you know, I think it was a couple of years ahead of iTunes, and so it wasn't as clear to everybody, but it seemed an obvious way to do things. And so I've always enjoyed being experimenting with things.
So now you're doing something with We7, which is an ad-driven service. How's it going?
It seems to be going pretty well. I think we've had 1.5 million downloads, and slowly we're convincing advertisers and labels, but I think a little faster than the slow process for OD2. So who knows what's going to work and what isn't. It was just, what I liked about that was the idea that there's free music for the audience that has grown up expecting music for free. And if the advertising is targeted well enough, for example, I want a hybrid car or a green car, and at that point I'm willing to receive ads from green car manufacturers, then maybe it's going to be less obtrusive and annoying than if it's, you know, cat food and I'm a dog owner. So I think that seems to make sense, and people are used to hearing advertising on television and radio. and it's much less than they are used to in those forms. So that in itself then provides some revenue to the rights owners and creators of the content. So as a musician, I like that idea, and I hope it works.